Community Comment.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning. Welcome into today's Community Comment. I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It is my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio this morning. Joining us here are members of the Beaver Dam Wall of Fame Committee and this year's award winners for the Wall of Fame Committee. Here to my right here is Chuck Stungle. To his right is Jeannie Stungle. And then to her right is Bev Beelake, who is a member on the Wall of Fame Committee. And then lastly, to her right is Mary Postuma, also on the Wall of Fame Committee. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming in this morning on Community Comment today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And in our first segment, we'll be talking with Chuck and Jeannie here about their being named the Friends of Education. Essentially, there are two different awards that are handed out. Chuck and Jeannie were the Friends of Education recipients this year. And then in our second segment, we're hoping to be joined by the phone by James Campbell. He will be the outstanding alumni winner for the Wall of Fame Awards for 2024. But again, want to thank our guests here for coming in to discuss this award, what this means, and how they went about being nominated and ultimately being named the recipients of these awards. And hopefully throughout the program, we'll be able to sprinkle in just kind of what the committee does each year, what they go through in the process of picking out the Friends of Education recipients and then the outstanding alumni recipients, and what that process looks like. And you're really essentially what this program has been for the last couple of years. It's been around for a while. I want to say it's the 70s or 80s. I think it was when it was a little earlier.
90s, actually 1997.
Yep. Okay, then my math is way off.
Yeah.
so
the decades fly.
Yeah, it starts to blend together as you get older. But here we want to really spend our bulk of our time here highlighting the work that Chuck and Jeannie have done here to receive that Friends of Education award. Although before we do that, maybe one of the members of the Wall of Fame Committee could just sort of briefly give us an overview of what the Friend of Education Award is and what the qualifiers are for somebody to be a recipient of this award. And I will decide between Mary and Bev who wants to jump in on that one.
We point at the
Sounds like Bev.
Mary will summarize that beautifully. Right.
So Friends of Education is, like I say, one of the awards for the Wall of Fame. And that is awarded each year to an individual or an organization that has given distinguished service to the district and its students. So it could be through volunteerism, a lot of different kind of activities that they may be involved with the school. And then each year we can select up to 5. So we could have 4 individuals and an organization, or 5 individuals, depending on the type of nominations that we receive.
Fantastic. And this year, the recipients, again, are Chuck and Jenny Stungle. Why don't we just give a little bit of background information, if you guys don't mind, before we dive into just a lot of the volunteer work and the advocate work that you guys do here in the community. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, who you guys are, and just how long. I mean, obviously, I don't think, if my memory is serving me correctly, you don't currently live in Beaver Dam anymore. Had for a while, but just give us a little bit of background about who the Stungles are.
Why don't you start? Because you're the lifelong Beaver Dam resident.
I was born in Beaver Dam in 1957, and so let's see, if you do the math, I'll be 68 this year. Born and raised here, educated here, graduated from Beaver Dam High School in 1975. So we're having our 50th class reunion coming up. So I'll let you do the math. And I was fortunate enough to be an educator in the Beaver Dam School District. I taught at the charter school for 4 years. I taught high school special ed for 15 years. And then thanks to my wife and her help, I taught elementary physical education for 7 years.
Great.
So I spent 26 years in the Beaver Dam School District teaching, and I'd do it again in a minute.
As somebody who is married to somebody who works in the school district, it's somebody who they care a lot about that that work, and it's important to have quality educators here. There are a lot of those here in the district of Beaver Dam.
And in fact, I was subbing for the person who was responsible for me to go into physical education.
Okay.
And I was subbing for him the day that I met Jeannie at Lincoln School.
So, Jeannie, were you employed there at
Yes,
Lincoln? Okay.
yes. I moved to Beaver Dam in 1978, and this was my first teaching job here in Beaver Dam. I love the community, and I have been just blessed to be here and to have all the experiences. I taught first grade for 36 years.
Wow, fantastic! And hopefully we can dive more into their experiences here teaching in the district here in Beaver Dam, and their involvement with a lot of events. Obviously, National Night Out is a big one that you guys are involved with. A lot of fundraising things as well. The playground movement here in Beaver Dam, you guys are closely involved with that. We'll dive more into those things here in our second segment of Community Comment. Again, we're here with Chuck and Jeannie Stungle, as well as Bev Beal-Lake and Mary Postuma with the Wall of Fame Committee. You're listening to Community Comment here on 95.3 WBEV. We have to take a short break. More Community Comment is coming up next.
Hey, what am I?
Here's Kevin Haugen.
It is 10:18 here on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. You are listening to Community Comment this morning. Joining us on the program again are with the Wall of Fame, Beaver Dam School District Wall of Fame Committee. We have with us here a little bit, not immediately to my right, two people to my right here is Bev Beal-Lake. To her right is Mary Postuma. To my immediate right here are the recipients of the Friend of Education Award. We have here this morning Chuck and Jeannie Stungle here on Community Comment this morning. Here in our second segment, we want to really dive into what the Stungles have done here in the community that had paved the way for them to be the Friend of Education recipients this year. And Bev or Mary, whoever wants to take this, you guys are sort of you guys are the decision makers when it comes to the recipients. We'll talk here with Chuck and Jeannie just about their experiences and what volunteering in the community here is like. But being on the committee, what made them stand out and made you guys think, all right, we have to look at the Stungles as being a friend of education here for the Beaver Dam School District?
Well, what our committee, and there's more than Mary and I, we have a pretty good sized committee representing different parts of the community. So I am on the committee now as a community member. Previously, when I served on the board, I held that spot as a board member. So we have board members, we have community members, we have district representatives at different educational levels,
We have alumni.
and alumni, yes. So
Fantastic.
I'm not an alumni, so I'm a community member. Just to try to give a good broad-based look at these awards. And this Friend of Education Award is one that if someone is nominated and they happen to have been an employee of the district, all the great stuff they did as an employee is not part of the consideration, because Friends of Education are meant to be going above and beyond. What are they doing outside of the school day to help children? Now, I would say with Chuck and Jeannie, there's a little bit of a gray area there, because I know while they were both teaching, they also did a lot of after-hours mentoring of kids. They had kids come over who just needed an adult presence, and they might shoot buckets, there might be card games, there might be other things I'm not aware of, good things that went on. And that definitely goes above and beyond a teacher's day. What I know, because I know Chuck and Jeannie probably a little more personally than other Friends of Education, Jeannie and I co-chaired Washington School PTO for a few years when our children were in school. That's after the school day.
Yeah.
And that was a school Jeannie wasn't teaching at then. Chuck, I know from my position with Church Health Services, he did the police academy and he became an alumni, did all that on his own time. And part of, I think, his reason for doing that, he may say otherwise, was to find other ways to better the connections between adults and children in our community entities. Out of that, he got involved with National Night Out. And of course, Jeannie, I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes there, because I know how organized she is. I'm sure Chuck is just as organized. But National Night Out has turned into a really big event.
Sure, yeah.
In no small part because of Chuck and Jeannie's efforts.
Yeah.
Playground movement is another one, and I'll let them tell more, because I know they were involved with playground movement from the very beginnings.
Yeah.
Another way to reach children who are live in an area where there's no park. There's nothing necessarily to get outside and do.
Yeah, maybe that's a good segue here to bringing in Chuck and Jeannie here to talk
Yep.
about their involvement here with supporting education and supporting the youth here in the community. And, Bev brought up the playground movement and, how important that is to help kids, get active, be outside more. But just talk about your both your involvement with that organization and just how you guys have been able to support it and help get kids be involved here in the community through the playground movement.
Yeah. Well, as you know, that part of town does not have a playground. Even food is very scarce. No grocery stores nearby.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura Gorell got us really involved with the playground movement, and we've pointed out that they were in need of help, and we became board members right at the very beginning, and then we took our time and just went over and we played games with them, with kids. We supported all their fundraisers and like backpacks and Christmas presents for the children and the community. And there's a huge gathering of food for what project is that? The
Backpacks.
the food.
Global Youth
Global
Services is coming
Youth
up.
Services, yes.
So
And-
so we donated food with that. They had weekend play dates scheduled, so I got really good at playing kickball. And then at Christmas time, they had kids that needed a present and things, so we drew a couple names and provided Christmas for people. And it was so cool to see that program just take off and go.
Awesome.
and grow.
That's fantastic. I also like to ask Chuck and Jeannie, both of them have an opportunity to answer this question. Chuck, we'll start with you. Just what does a friend of education mean to you when it means supporting here the district here in Beaver Dam and being able to be involved with groups and organizations that support what the kids are doing here? What does a friend of education mean to you?
Well, I'm totally honored to receive the award. When Mary called and said that we'd been selected, I'm going to tell you,
You were crying.
we were crying. We were crying. Because when you look at our involvement, we didn't step into things expecting to be recognized. We just, we were at a church meeting the other night, and the word in our vocabulary is help. You know, we like to help out wherever we can, with whatever we can, and however we can. So when things came towards us, we looked at each other and go,
Sure.
you know, and the word no isn't in our vocabulary.
Not either.
You know, so we, like I said, I'm totally honored that we've been recognized, and it's like that's just who we are, you know, and we appreciate what, you know.
And we enjoy all the things we get involved in. You know, it's not like, oh my goodness, you know, it's just we're going to do it and we have fun with it and we get to know more people, and it's neat being able to help. And there's former students that then see us out there helping and recognizing each other, and that's a really neat happening.
And I'm sure that's really something that you guys look back on as really some of the more fonder memories that you guys have of your volunteering and still being supportive of the community here is just the friends and people that you met over the decades of your involvement here in the community. I'm sure those stand out to both of you. Yeah,
Yes.
In fact, it's really kind of fun because we like McDonald's Cokes. So when we pull in the drive-through, they recognize my voice. How you doing, Mr. Stungle? In fact, there was one time that we got to where we got our food, and the young man said, "Hi, Mr. Stungle, how are you? You still wearing those Converse? What pair do you have on today?"
It makes you feel like you're home here. In Beaver Dam.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And we really love Beaver Dam. We have 2 grandchildren, which made our exodus to Verona. But
Yes. Fantastic. Now, another question I would like to have here as we start to wrap up our time here in our second segment of community comment this morning for Chuck and Jeannie Stungle is obviously getting people, the next generation, involved in supporting what you guys are doing, like supporting organizations that help kids, or just organizations that nonprofits in the area that do the important work that they do. Just what are the things that you would tell people to get them out and get them involved in the community and do some of the things that you guys have done so passionately for a long time?
I would say find a group or an activity that you're interested in and just step in and get involved, because that's the hardest part, because a lot of people, I always thought, there's no way I can do this, but when you step up, say yes, and then you find out that this is where I can help, or this is what I can do, and once you take that first step, the rest is easy.
Fantastic.
like even with the food is free, donating to that pantry, or when they have second harvest here to distribute, just say yes and give it a try. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can have to do it forever, but I think just getting that, like Chuck said, that step towards being involved.
Fantastic. You are with us this morning on Community Comments. Here to my right are the Friends of Education Award winners for the 2024 Wall of Fame Awards, Chuck and Jeannie Stungle. To their right, we have members of the Wall of Fame Committee, Bev Bealake and Mary Postuma. Here on Community Comment. In our next segment, we are looking forward to our conversation with the outstanding alumni winner for the 2024 Wall of Fame Awards. That is James Campbell. He'll be joining us over the phone here in our next segment of Community Comments. We do have to take another break. More Community Comment is coming up next.
Here's Kevin Haugen with Community Comment.
Well, thank you, Jake, and welcome back into our morning community comment program here on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Here on our program this morning, we are chatting with the award winners for the 2024 Beaver Dam School District Wall of Fame Awards. In studio this morning, we have with us Chuck and Jeannie Stungle, as well as members of the Wall of Fame Committee, Bev Beal-Lake and Mary Postuma. Joining us here on the phone, here in our third segment of Community Comment, is the Outstanding Alumni Award winner for the 2024 Outstanding Wall of Fame Awards. With us here on the phone again is James Campbell. James, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James, for taking the time to join us here on the program. I know you're vacationing here today, so thank you for the time to join us here on Community Comment.
My pleasure.
And before we get to James and highlight his post Beaver Dam High School career and kind of what has led him to being an outstanding alumni, let's head back to Mary. And she did a fantastic job here giving us the details of what the Friends of Education Award recipients means and what the qualifiers are for there. Let's focus here on outstanding alumni and what does the Wall of Fame Committee look for when handing out this award.
So Outstanding Alumni Award is, they obviously have to be a graduate of the Beaver Dam Unified School District. And there's different criteria. They don't necessarily need to meet all of the criteria, but what we consider is have they made a contribution to society, displayed outstanding leadership, are they a person of historical significance, or have they been prominent local, state, national, or world figures? So it could be, like I say, any one of those criteria that they could meet. Some of them meet all of them, some meet some, a few of them, but so it's just kind of something, like I said, that we consider, and we do select just one outstanding alumni each year. And if you've been to the high school in the Commons area outside the auditorium, you'll see our Wall of Fame, and that has all of our honorees over the years, and there's been quite a variety of them.
No, that's it's great that Mary had mentioned that. I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, that in the Beaver Dam High School, you can see all past winners on the Wall of Fame award wall there at the high school, and this year's recipients of those awards will have their plaques up there as well here. And that is that done on the banquet night on May 6th when that celebration?
We don't hang them that night, but
Okay.
we do present them, at the wall.
Fantastic.
When we have our award ceremony.
Fantastic. Again, that's May 6th here at the high school, that the annual banquet ceremony to celebrate the honorees, again, for the Friends of Education, Chuck and Jeannie Stungle, and the outstanding alumni, James Campbell. Now, James, I want to kick off our conversation with you, just going back to your time at the Beaver Dam High School. You're a 1980 graduate of the district. And James, how much do you remember your time and tenure at the Beaver Dam High School?
Well, as I grow older, my memory fades. But no, I remember a lot. We won the Wisconsin State football championship in my senior year, which was a great achievement for all of us, for the entire team. I remember my teachers very well. In fact, I was visiting about 2.5 months ago James Passelt, who was my history teacher in my senior year of high school, and I was visiting him up in Anago, and he's still as sharp as ever. And so it was a great experience for me attending Beaver Dam High School. I made a lot of friends and have a lot of friends.
Great, fantastic. Now I want to look at your post high school career, James. Sort of walk us through what happened once you left the Beaver Dam High School, and your post high school education career, and then your work after that.
Well, that's a long and winding road. I've done everything from move furniture to landscaping, but for the past 30 years I've been a writer, and I started out as a magazine writer, mostly writing for outdoor publications, Field and Stream, Outside Magazine, that type of thing. And then I moved on to books, and I've written 5 books, and then I've also dabbled in TV. I've in fact done 3 TV shows in the last 15 years that I've been particularly proud of. But it's been a great career and a very challenging one.
Now, James, what ultimately want to pursue something in in writing? You mentioned you started off your writing career really working for magazines. Some of them, the National Geographic, Field and Stream, another one. But just what drew you to that as something to do for your career?
Well, my dad grew up on a farm, and he was a farm boy at heart, though he didn't farm when we grew up. And he was a great storyteller. And when I was a boy, he used to tell stories about growing up on the farm, and I remember those stories so well. And my mother introduced us to books, and we were readers growing up, and she introduced us to literature, and I've always been interested. And I was particularly interested in the explorers' journals, not only explorers of Africa, but also explorers of the United States. And I vowed that one day I'd be an explorer and I'd write about it. And I think I was 10 when I told my mother that I wanted to be a writer. And as I said, I didn't immediately become a writer, but eventually I did. And I'm very pleased with the career.
Great. Now, James, I feel like I'm going to ask you another loaded question that will be very hard to answer. But what, when you look back at your writing career for magazines, again, writing for Rolling Stone, National Geographic, Autobahn, Outside, and Field and Stream, is there any particular piece that you wrote or story that you worked on that you remember and think back on that was really, really cool and a unique opportunity to be able to write about?
Yeah, one does come to mind. Maybe the most terrifying experience of my life. I was sailing with the world's last star navigators from Saipan, which is way out in the Pacific near Guam, if you're familiar with World War II history. But we were sailing 1,000 miles to the Caroline Islands of Micronesia, and we got caught in a hurricane, and the sky turned absolutely black, and the wind was howling, and there were 20 and 30-foot waves, and we strapped onto the sailboat so we wouldn't be blown off. And I remember that even the people I was with, they were Micronesians from the islands of the Caroline Islands, and even they were terrified. They were chanting and singing, and I figured if they were scared, I sure better be scared. But I had a sat phone at the time, and as I said, they're star navigators, so they didn't use compasses, they didn't use GPSs, but I remember typing in my GPS coordinates to my wife and sending it, and I thought maybe, perhaps we were 600 miles from the nearest island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and I thought, perhaps somebody could come find us if indeed we did capsize, which we almost did. But that was absolutely terrifying. Thrilling, but terrifying.
Yeah, that certainly sounds so. Again, we're chatting here this morning on Community Comment with, over the phone, the outstanding alumni, James Campbell, in studio with us here, the Friends of Education, Chuck and Jeannie Stungle, and then members of the Wall of Fame Committee, Mary Postuma and Bev Beelake. We do have to take another break. We'll talk more about James' career as well as the Chuck and Jeannie Stungle, what they're doing here in the community in our next segment of Community Comment. And again, more Community Comment is coming up next. Well, thank you very much, and welcome back into today's community comment here in our last segment of our program this morning. Again, we are joined with this year's winners of the Beaver Dam School District Wall of Fame Awards, the Friends of Education, Chuck and Jeannie Stungle. Over the phone, joining us is James Campbell, the outstanding alumni. We're also joined by the Wall of Fame committee members, Mary Postuma and Bev Beal-Lake. Before we went to break, we were just enthralled with James' story about one of the highlights, I'm sure of many, of his writing career, writing for a number of different publications and magazines. And now, James, I was hoping to ask and just talk about your pivot from writing for those magazines to writing for writing books. I know it's you write, you kind of get in that habit, and it's not that hard to go from magazines to books, but they're different formats and there's different work involved in being able to put that together. James, what made you want to go down that route and write books?
Kids.
Fair enough.
I realized that I had kids who I had to feed. I love magazine writing, but it occurred to me after we had kids that I needed to do something more profitable. So I'd always wanted to write books, but I moved from magazines into books, and then eventually from books into television, and now I do all three.
Great. Now the books that James has written here: the Final Frontiersman, the Ghost Mountain Boys, The Color of War, Braving It, and the upcoming book Heart of the Jaguar. James, this might be another very hard question to answer, but is there a book that stands out to you out of those that you've written already that you are more proud than the others, all proud of all of them, or is there is there one of those books that you look back on and think, man, that's my favorite?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. No, I guess I am very proud of all of them, and all of them are very, very different, kind of very different projects. The book Braving It, I guess, is the most personal one. That's about my daughter and me in introducing my daughter to the wilderness of Alaska. And ultimately, we made 3 trips up to Alaska. We built a cabin with my cousin, and then we went up in the middle of the winter and stayed in a wall tent with a little wood stove at 30 and 40 below. And then for our 3rd trip, we backpacked over the Brooks Range and canoed out to the Arctic Ocean, and we're stranded on a barrier island waiting for our Inupiat captain to come pick us up. But there was a storm, and he couldn't pick us up, and we were trapped on the island with a very inquisitive and later turned aggressive polar bear.
Oh my goodness!
So that was frightening. But my first book was about my cousin, who my cousin Jaime Korth, who lives more remotely than anybody in the state of Alaska, anybody perhaps in North America. He's a hunter-trapper living in the midst of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. That was, and the others too. I wrote a book about New Guinea, which I've always been fascinated with, and the men who fought there in World War II. They became my very, very close friends. So, yeah, they were all very meaningful to me.
Right now, James, I was hoping to ask you about your experience working on TV. You've developed and helped produce the television series for Discovery. The and History Channel shows there. The Last Alaskans is one of them, as well as Great Lake Warriors. Just how did that come about, and those opportunities to help produce and develop shows for TV?
Well, I'd always wanted to do TV or documentaries, and now there's a greater opportunity for authors to turn their books into television series, and so I turned the Final Frontiersman into a series that played for 1 year on Animal Planet and then 3 years on Discovery Channel, called The Last Alaskans, and it was about the last people who have the right from the federal government to hunt and trap and gather in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And one of those people was my cousin and his family. And I remember I was an executive producer for that show, but I remember bringing an executive producer up from Washington, D.C. We spent the day with Jaimo. They got along very well. And then he handed Jaimo the talent agreement. And Jaimo put the pen to the paper and then retracted his hand. And he looked at the producer, and he took his index finger, and he poked the producer in the middle of the chest. And he said, "If you make me look stupid, I will gut you like a caribou."
Okay.
Which, of course, he was kidding. But the point was very clear. But that show actually was nominated twice for Emmys. So we did right by them.
Yeah.
And my most recent project is called Golden Greed, and that's for Netflix. It's a 3-episode series about the largest treasure hunt in American history.
Wow.
Which took place from 2010 until 2024.
Right. Now, James, I get the sense here that nature, wildlife, and the outdoors means quite a bit to you. Is that true? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, you hit it. Yeah, definitely.
What made that so?
I've always loved.
Oh, sorry, James. I apologize. But what made that area of research and just exploring the outdoors made that such a passionate subject for you?
Well, I've always loved the outdoors. I grew up with hunting and fishing with my dad, and camping as a family. And then as I grew older, I became interested in backpacking and that type of thing. And I've always been interested in big wild wildernesses like Alaska and the island of New Guinea. My brother and I first went there in 1989. We were either going to build a raft and float down the Amazon or go to remote Papua New Guinea, and we went to remote Papua New Guinea, and I think it was a life-changing experience for both of us.
Great. Now, sorry, James, go ahead.
Oh no, that's it. I think all those played a role.
Great, fantastic. Now, as we start to wind down our time here on a community comment this morning, James, I would just like to ask you what does it mean when you got the phone call that you were an outstanding alumni for the Beaver Dam School District?
I was astounded. It's the last thing I ever expected. Apparently, this idea was hatched sometime in the fall of 2024, and by Steve Kinsey and my brother was apparently assembling the materials for my candidacy, and my daughters were involved, and I had absolutely no idea when I got a call from 920, and I thought, who could be calling me? And then I eventually called back, and I was taken completely by surprise. And I'm, very, very flattered and very, very honored. Obviously, there are a lot of people that could have been chosen, and I'm just grateful they chose me.
Great. Now, the award recipients will be honored on May 6th at the annual banquet evening here at the Beaver Dam High School, where the plaques will be handed out again to the award winners for the 2024 Wall of Fame Awards. I want to thank our guests here again. Go to the phone here and say again, thanks, James, for your time here this morning on Community Comment. Thanks for joining us here on the program.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Also want to thank the Friends of Education here, Chuck and Jeannie Stungel. Thank you both so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Also want to thank the Wall of Fame committee members, Bev Beelake and Mary Postuma. Thank you, ladies, for coming in here today.
Thanks for having us.
And that will do it for today's Community Comment.
If you